early college, living with Sam and John there on Abbott Street. And 1013, one love. We are off and running. Time for another episode of Cash's Top 5. I cannot believe we got our next guest finally on the pod. Trust me, he's not being held captive where he's at. He looks like he's being held. Show the different lights you got in there.
Okay, hold on. There's the relax.
Oh, there we go.
Which looks
nice.
Looks angry. It's
now
not
looks
really
like,
a
it
relax.
looks like you're a professional gamer right now is what that looks like.
Thanks for the donation.
Now, let's say you get really angry. Oh, God. You look sunburnt. Look at that.
I did fall asleep by the pool yesterday, so it would make sense.
You just got back from vacation. You're sunburnt. You're playing games.
I feel like the blue light might be more of a gamer, just kind of yeah. So.
Oh, but my best friend in the world, Kyle Eberly, we're going to call him Ebbs. How's it going, buddy?
Good. How about you, sir?
Good, man. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you on. And we have an incredibly tough one to do today. One you picked. We're ranking our top 5 what?
Top 5 TV shows. And it's I wish we did a qualifier for this because there's so many to choose from that it's like, oh no, this is, we're going to waste it all on this one. But, we can always break it down later if need be.
Yeah. I mean, we could do top 5 sitcoms, top 5 dramas, top 5 reality. I mean, there's so many categories and subsections. Right. I know. We both love Survivor. Richard Hash.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
It's our top 5 favorite TV shows of all time, which is incredibly hard. I have a feeling I know maybe 1 or 2 of yours, and you're pretty sure 1 or 2 of mine, which I would hope so. We've been friends for long enough that we've talked a time or 2 about our favorite TV shows, but I'm curious to see if there's one that is a little bit of a curveball.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, top 5s, you were talking about that when we worked together in Marriott all those years ago. We were we talked about doing top 5s just because, it could come up in conversation on a date or something like that. It's just have it ready to go. So, I mean, I've always had a top 5 couple of lists, but I think this might be the hardest one that I actually wanted to work on and not just be top 5, this is it. So I like ESPN. It's that's not a TV show. Oh, okay.
Can I just watching pop-up video? Is that a show?
Sports good. MTV. That's a station. Yeah, that.
I like that show Netflix. It's real good. Like that. When I put Netflix on, that's such a good show.
They always know what I want. It's great.
All right, man. Let's get it started. Our top 5 favorite TV shows of all time. Ebbs, what do you have at number 5?
All right. This is a bit of a newer one, which I don't know. It's a lot of people's favorite TV shows. I feel like would be older because they've been around for so long. But I think this one just surprised me. Plus, it's really way to nerd out, but I have The Mandalorian at number 5.
Really?
Yes, I bet you wouldn't have guessed that. But knowing me in Star Wars, of all the shows, they have a lot of good ones like the Clone Wars and all these other cartoony shows that came out. They never really had a live action. But when they came out with The Mandalorian, picking Pedro Pascal to be, the Mando, which is funny because he sounds like when I first was listening, I was like, is that Timothy Oliphant doing a voiceover? Because they sound so similar. And then they brought him back in season 2 as, spoiler alert, a guy who wears Boba Fett's armor. But it's oh my gosh, I was like, that's Timothy Oliphant. That can't be anybody other than him. And then it's Pedro Pascal. But, it just this Star Wars being brought to life and not being a main storyline of anything and making it a spaghetti Western was oh my God, 2 great things. And then Jon Favreau, of course, he started the whole Marvel universe. And now I feel like he's starting a revolution of something completely different. So it's pretty exciting.
That's a really strong pick, man. I wouldn't have guessed that, although I should have. I would normally say I think you're being prisoner of the moment because it's so recent. But given your Star Wars love is no, I get it. That's up there.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, like I said, this is just going to be hard, and it was so hard to put that at 5. And what's in honorable mentions, you may be mad at me for, but I'm willing to fight.
And when you're ready to fight, what color are you going to turn?
Red, which app closed. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Oh no.
We can fix it in post. I'm not going to.
We'll fix it in post. There's a post?
No.
Wait, it didn't switch. Wait. All right, we'll do it later.
Okay.
So it's not switching.
So we got Mandalorian is your number 5.
Number 5. What about you? What do you have for me?
My number 5 for you, I think, is no surprise to you that's on my list. I think it might surprise you how low it is. But my 5th favorite TV show of all time is The Office.
I thought, okay, when you said that, I thought it was one of your shows that was going to be higher, but I thought this might be lower, but that's not the one that I was thinking of. But I knew you would pick that one, if that makes sense.
Kind of. I followed it.
Why The Office?
It's just such a good show. I think a lot of it is just enjoying Steve Carell as Michael Scott. Just an unbelievably funny character. It's one of those shows, when they start off, you don't really have everything fleshed out at first. You're still feeling out the characters. And I think the characters start to take on more of the actor, who's playing them.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you watch the first few episodes of Seinfeld, George Costanza's like giving Jerry dating advice. And you're like, wait, what? Like he's not the ladies' man. They eventually fall into their roles, and Michael's not so mean as he is in the first 6 episodes or whatever the first season is. But it's just so funny, man. It's classic. It's iconic, and you can watch it over and over again, and it's super funny. There's gut punch funny. There's heady, cerebral, all that's clever funny. There's heartwarming moments, parts that make you cry. It might rank higher on my list if Pam wasn't a part of it. My hatred for Pam Beasley knows no bounds. Jim should have ended up with Karen. We don't need to get into that. That's a whole other episode of we can do a top 5 reasons we hate Pam. But it's just such a good show. And even the haters that are like, oh, after Michael Scott left, Steve Carell left the show. I still think it was really good. I think there might have been a bit of a dip. But Robert California, James Spader was terrific. Will Ferrell, for his few episodes he was in, was hilarious. You and I both have a huge affinity for Will. So,
of course,
great show, iconic, and it could have ranked higher, but like we said, this is really tough. So it's number 5.
Yes. Ugh, man, it's just going down this list. It's just I don't know. It's like I know we talked about it honorable mentions just as long as that, but it's like it was super hard. So
yeah. Okay. What do you got at number 4?
Number 4, The Mandalorian. Nope, sorry, that was number 5. This might catch you off guard possibly, but Psych. I know.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering if this was going to make it because USA Network not going to make a lot of top 5 lists for quality of content, but this is a show that you got me to watch. I really liked it. Tell me Psych.
Yes. So for those of you that don't know, Psych is a psychic detective show along the lines of The Mentalist, to where it came out beforehand, but he's actually a secret that he's not a psychic. He's just hyper observant. And the funny thing is The Mentalist came out a couple years later, and then later seasons they make fun of it, saying it's a great show and everything like that. And it's just like they're stabbing it and like, it's still our idea, but all of that good stuff. But James Roday, who's not really a huge name, like he does a lot of independent films. Dule Hill was on a couple episodes of Cosby Show and did a few other things, but nothing really major. It's one of those casts that wasn't really famous, I feel, until this show. And then it got a huge following. And I mean, I remember being in college and USA aired this and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a great show. And then, following it for seasons, falling off a couple later seasons, but then getting right back on and just loving the show. And then, it's funny. And like you said, with The Office, I think a lot of these shows on here, well, some, maybe not others. Some will have, the funny part where it's just outright funny. And you're like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. It's got gut punching. It's funny, but then there's also a lot of heartbreaking, heartwarming, different things like that. And I think, just because I've loved it for so long, it's one of those things that's like, why wouldn't this be on my top 5? So
Yeah, of course. And a great villain in Timothy Amundsen.
Yeah,
He's the
because he
detective
plays like,
that doesn't like the guys, and
yeah, and he's always wary of it and always kind of knew that he wasn't a psychic, but his abilities are so good that it's like, what could he have been if he was just became a cop or an actual detective and did all this stuff. So
yeah.
but I have to go around and pretend to be psychic and all that other stuff. So but I just love it.
Psych always reminds me of the Aziz Ansari bit, just because it was on USA Network, like Bird Notice was. Like, who watches Bird Notice? Harris watches
Burn Notice.
Harris watches Psych.
Josh Duhamel doesn't even what was it, the show that he's talking about? It's not Casino, but something. He's like, Josh Duhamel doesn't even watch that show, and he was on the show, and no one gets that joke because no one watches that show. But
Damages was another one. Like, who watches this show? I've heard of it.
Damages. I mean, Monk was probably, until Psych, I feel Monk was like the only show that
That's an underrated show too. That's a good one.
I mean, I like that, but it was a little younger, so I didn't appreciate it for what it was. I'm sure if I went back and did it, I'd be like, oh, Tony Shalhoub did a good job.
So my number 4 for you is not in the comedy realm. It's more of a period piece, so a little more drama. But it's Mad Men is my number 4.
I knew that would make it. I just didn't know where.
It's so good. It's a gorgeous, like I have said before, it's the most beautiful show I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Just beautifully shot, the costuming of the era. The women are gorgeous, the dudes are good looking. I mean, Don Draper is like the guy. That's the guy you like. I want to be like him, man. Wear the clean suit and just kind of lounge and not have a care in the world. And the storylines are great. It's interesting to see their take on things, about how life really was back in the 60s, through that whole decade, from early on to, the liberation movement and the more progressive politics of the late 60s. Great show. And it's a rewatchable. Like, you can there's so much in that show, little details and little stories that you can take a year or two off of it, go back, and you're like, it's like rewatching it again. Cause I'm like, I legitimately don't remember what happens what happens next. And you get kind of sucked back in. So good.
See, I think that they were smart in doing it, like that being a show, in the sense that, you go back and you watch, like you said, The Office, or you watch Psych, and you see that it was a show of the times, but not necessarily like you watch it today and you're like, oh my gosh, they're still using flip phones, they're still using sliding phones and all that other stuff. To whereas, if you set something back in a time where, I mean, you and I didn't live during that time, our parents did, but super, super late, they were super young or anything, but you don't go back and you're like, oh my God, this show is bad because of the technology of the time. But it's like, the 60s and 70s was like, that's literally what it was, and you can't change it.
It's meant to be dated. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, it wasn't dated because of when it came out. It was dated because they wanted it to be. So I feel like that would bring a different aspect to the show if you go back and rewatch, because that's just what it was then. So, and plus John Hamm, oh man, what a handsome gentleman.
What a guy. Okay.
And funny too. He's hilarious. Like when he does comedy stuff, it's like
it's not
funniest
fair.
Stuff I've
You're
seen.
not allowed to be that good looking and that funny and charming. Like, dude, save some for the rest of us, man.
It's ridiculous. Some people though.
Okay, we've got Mandalorian, we've got Psych.
Yes.
The next one gonna have one word title. We're gonna find out. Ebbs, your third favorite TV show of all time. What do you got?
It's got 2 words, and it's actually, I think, the only one that's not a comedy, but I figured I'd make it rounded out, which I don't know if it's going to be on yours, but I kind of have a hope that it will. Breaking Bad.
Okay, talk about it.
So, I mean, it's from the first episode, the pilot, which is probably one of the best pilots out there. I've seen quite a fair share of shows.
Yeah.
But in terms of pilot, there's not a lot of people that can hook you in and want to make you watch it for the extension of the entire show. I feel like nowadays it might be a little cheating. Like The Mandalorian, yes, it's a great first episode, but that's because they had huge budget. They had Disney backing them and doing all this stuff to where it's, that you can make a great first episode, but with Breaking Bad, you know, it's a 45-minute long, it's an hour-long episode, so they say. But just having, you know, setting up everything in that first episode to where the very first scene is him flying down an RV or down a highway, and you hear sirens, and he gets out and he's wearing his underwear and he's got a gun, and it's like, oh my God, what is this show? And then you watch it to get to that point and you're like, oh my gosh. And I feel like that's kind of how it was with the whole show, to where they give you this scene and you jump to your own conclusions, and then you realize that something isn't what it seems on the surface. And I feel like that was what the whole show was about. And then, you know, it's just the whole, all the way up until the ending. Like, I know it pissed off a lot of people with what had happened at the end and how they got there. Because some people loved it. And I think some people say it's one of the best finales of all time, and just you know, having this great show that had some funny moments. It wasn't all, you know, craziness, because it's Bryan Cranston of all people. So there was some funny things, and then it of course spun off a really another great show, Better Call Saul. And you know, it's Bob Odenkirk in its own right. It's been in television forever. It's just hilarious. But to have the comedy with the seriousness and like the heartbreakingness of a lot of the show, and being such a serious subject, that I think that it just makes it an all-around great show.
I don't know that I could say it any better than that, man. I agree. You know, my number 3 for you is Breaking Bad. So
is it?
Yeah.
I knew we'd have some overlap, but not on the exact same number.
Exact same one. I mean, all of what you just said, ditto, you know, cosign, as they say.
Yeah.
I think it's also one of those rare instances of a TV show where when characters are introduced later on in the series, they're really good. Like, I feel like when you add characters to a series, sometimes it misses, you know, like when The Office, when they start to add like a Gabe or a Nelly, or certain characters like that, or Mad Men. There were some characters that I really like Lane Price was one that was added like season 3 or 4. I enjoyed him. There were others that came on. I was like, all right.
It's just like, yeah.
But when they start adding Saul, and then they add Gus, and then they add, like, you know,
Mike, and it's like, oh my
Mike
gosh.
Ehrmantraut, and then there are other, like, because they need a new villain, you know, each season there's another new bad guy that's going to kind of mess stuff up for Walt and for Jesse. But incredible show. I've said it's kind of like Mad Men, and maybe that's what AMC wanted to do. You know, it's kind of the movie channel doing TV shows. Every episode felt like a mini movie, you know. The last 5 minutes would really ramp up, and you're like, oh my God, how is he going to get out of this time? Like, what's he going to do?
Season 3, like the penultimate, the one just before the season 3 finale, where, you know, spoiler alert, it's been out for years, people watch it, but how he runs over those drug dealers before Jesse can shoot him and kill him, and he's like run, and like, oh my God, that was talk about amping up in the last 5 minutes, but then you just like had to see the next episode. So I think we're spoiled in this streaming age, but that's okay, because I love it.
I was thinking that when I was putting my list together for you, there's too much content, because every time it's like, hey, have you watched this? Hey, have you watched that? Like, you know, my buddy Mark watches everything I don't. He's a huge fan of The Sopranos. He watched The Tudors. He liked The Viking show. He was on Sons of Anarchy way before I was, and I ultimately did watching that show, and I enjoyed it. But there's just so much content. Usually when somebody's like, hey, have you seen it? I'm like, no, man, I'm watching so much television. How am I still not getting to what you want to talk about? This is ridiculous.
And then they bring out good stuff, and you're just like, oh, I gotta watch that now. And then, you know,
the list is a mile long.
It's which I think one of your top that I'm gonna guess, it might be an honorable mention. But I know it took me a while to get around to watch it. I won't mention the name until it's mentioned, but after I watched it, I really enjoyed it. Didn't make my top 5, but, you know, it was a really good show. So it's like one of those things.
Sure. Well, hey, we both had the same number 3. I doubt we're going to have the same number 2, but we'll see. Ebbs, what's your number 2 favorite show of all time?
So this is the 1-2 spot I've been struggling with literally the past couple days.
1A, 1B.
It might be. But I think I'm going to have to go, and don't hate me for this. Number 2 is Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
So
yeah,
this is a show that, and I think the same reason that 2 I changed to 1 and 1 I changed to 2 will be evident. I know that we've talked about this before outside of this, but first season on a lot of shows is really sometimes hard to get through on great shows. The Office being an example, like you talked about, it's 6 episodes. It kind of mirrored the first season of The Office in England, which was, I watched that before I'd ever seen The Office. And you know my stance on that years ago. I was like, it's the best. Why would I want to watch the American version? That's not going to be funny, which is a real douchey thing to say because The Office became great. But I mean, the first season of Parks and Rec was kind of the same. It had nothing to be based off of, but it was just kind of like, getting through it. It's like, it's good. It sets up characters, which, Amy Poehler, her character changes entirely from season 1 to season 2. Like Leslie Knope I think we've talked about it, that Steve Carell-esque, when he was doing his Michael Scott, it was kind of like that, because that's what they had a base off of with Michael Schur and Greg Daniels. So it's like, and I'm sure they pulled her aside. It's like, hey, season 2, we got the back 9 or whatever you call it in those terms. It's like, you need to be your own character. And she destroyed it and became somewhat of an idol that, I mean, a lot of females out there and myself, I wish I was as organized as Leslie Knope, but it's became a positive female role model instead of just an idiot running around running a paper office. But then you've got, great characters that are, part of the main cast. Nick Offerman, with Ron Swanson, Chris Pratt playing Andy Dwyer, Aubrey Plaza, just all of them. And like you said, with other shows, that a lot of characters that were introduced later actually ended up being great. Like Bobby Newport, Paul Rudd was just a side character, and then he became, or Bobby Newport Jr., I guess, became the rival for Leslie later on, and then kind of made a comeback and was in the show. And just everybody, Catherine Hahn later was great, because she's just great all around anyway.
She is.
But to add her that late in the seasons and then become like was it 7 seasons, I think?
7
is what they did. So like her being like kind of a mainstay in season 7 and everything like that. It was just, and to do a 3-year jump at the end was just like the end of season 6 into 7 was like, is this going to be the season finale, or is this going to be, the last season it feels like it's going to be written off. Oh no, it was just as good. Like it made it that much greater, I feel like. And the season finale series finale was just so good, how they just time jumped around and made it like everyone got what I think they deserved in the end. So
yeah, man. It's such a good show. For me, it's the number 1 honorable mention for me. It just barely didn't make the cut. I struggle between The Office and Parks and Rec, and I realized I was deducting points from The Office somewhat unfairly because I've seen it too many times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's the Stairway to Heaven effect. I've heard the song so many times. Does that mean it's not the greatest song or one of the greatest songs? Parks and Rec, don't get me wrong, is amazing. I kind of view it as The Office is kind of a complete meal. Like it's fried chicken, it's green beans, it's mashed potatoes, it's cornbread. Like it's a great meal. And Parks and Rec is like the most amazing slice of pizza in the world. It's just a little less than, but really in some respects it's better than. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so difficult. So it makes sense that it would rank so highly for you because it's so funny and because some of the characters are so great. Like you said, Andy Dwyer in the first season is supposed to be like the asshole. Like they wanted him to be a mean, unlikable guy. And they're like, no, we have this amazing teddy bear. Let's make him this lovable doof. And now he's one of the best characters. Same with Ron Swanson. I mean, such a great collection of characters on one show.
And they all care too. Like, I mean, they make them out to be assholes at some point, but just the fact that they would do anything for Leslie and it shows throughout the series. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like this is like, it's just so good. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I mean, The Office did that. Yes. But I feel like because of the experience from The Office, Michael Schur and Greg Daniels were able to build on that with Parks and Rec. So,
well, my number 2 for you is also somewhat related to Michael Schur, and Greg Daniels adjacent, not quite. But my number 2 favorite show of all time is Saturday Night Live.
Okay, I was like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but
What?
because that's a good one. But
Greg Daniels and Mike
SNL.
Schur are geniuses. You've got King of the
It's
Hill.
not fair.
Yeah, you got King of the Hill. You've got.
I didn't know that for the longest time that they had a hand in that. And I'm like, oh my gosh! I literally every time it turns on, it's like Greg Daniels. I'm like, yeah, Greg Daniels.
All the good stuff, man. SNL in the '90s. Excuse me. King of the Hill, Office, Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and then the movies that came out in that time too.
I think he also did New Girl.
Adam McKay.
For a couple, which I think
The Good Place.
Was it New Girl? Good Place. That's what it was. Place. Yeah.
All of it. Adam McKay, Greg Daniels, Mike Schur were just owned. But Saturday Night Live, I couldn't keep off. I was thinking about what would be my top 5. And don't get me wrong, Saturday Night Live has some off seasons. It has some off episodes. Not every sketch is a winner. We know that. But the amount of winning over 40 years, and I'm not a huge fan of the 70s. There's some good stuff here or there. Don't get me wrong, but I'm a product of my generation. The 80s was mostly forgettable until the late 80s when you had, Jan Hooks and Kevin Nealon and Phil Hartman and Mike Myers came in. Then you had the bad boys of the 90s, Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, David Spade, Rob Schneider. And then you usher in the late 90s. You've got Tina Fey, amazing. You've got Rachel Dratch, Amy Poehler, Jimmy Fallon, Will Ferrell, Tracy Morgan, Chris Kattan. And then the early 2000s, you start to usher in Kristen Wiig. You've got Andy Samberg, Bill Hader, Jason Sudeikis, just Kenan Thompson, an icon. So much quotable in the zeitgeist, in the lexicon, making copies. I mean, is there a more quotable show? Now, a lot of that's due to the length of the show. It's been on forever. I get that. But you can't tell me that hasn't shaped my comedic tastes, the standard that I want for certain content. Just so good.
And that's the other thing too. Like, it's the memorable stuff. There's some things that you're like, oh, I remember that. But like when you talk about Saturday Night Live with someone, it's, people will be like, oh my God, I love X, Y, and Z. Like, oh, like, it's not like, you mention a show and they're just like, oh, I like this. And that's about it. But like, they'll go into in depth about like their sketch or a host that was amazing or, musical guest. And the fact that you have this, it's not necessarily variety because it's no one's, trying out for anything, but you have these ensemble. No one's really just the star. Because they're all just hilarious most of the time. But it's like you said, it shapes everything. I don't think I would try to be as funny as I am sometimes just because, I was watching Mad TV, but it's because SNL was just so funny. So.
Yeah. And it's difficult, and Eddie Murphy kind of embodies the microcosm of what I'm talking about. It's really tough to be funny and be really cool. Like, it's not cool to try, and you can't really be funny without trying, if that makes sense. It's tough to pull off both. And Eddie Murphy was super funny and super cool. Everybody wanted to be him. And SNL as a whole was able to do that with the rock acts, the celebrities that would drop in. I think when people say SNL has lost its edge or it's not as good as it used to be, that's generational complaining, and I get that. Because I'll say that from time to time, like, it was just so much better when it was. Everything's better when you're 13, man, and it's gonna be.
That's
different.
where you develop your likes and everything, and it's not gonna be the same because that's what you had something completely different than what it is now. So can you imagine if it stayed the same, it wouldn't be that good. So
and SNL I think also hurts from the streaming 24/7 on-demand culture we're in. It was a thing like back in the day. The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Everybody tuned in at 11:30 to Johnny. SNL Saturday Night Live at 11:30. Now it's Saturday Night Live. Like, no, man, what's going to happen? Anything can happen. You had to watch at that time, and we grew up with the era of reruns, so it would be on VH1 or Comedy Central. We could watch the old skits or whatever. But even then, you had to catch it when it was on. You couldn't necessarily record it.
Yep.
So I think it loses a little bit of its firepower because of that, but it's still, when you take a look at the body of work, amazing.
I mean,
show.
Sunday morning, you wake up now and you're like, what were the funny skits? Because I missed it last night. But then, like you said, like if you missed it, like you had to wait until, I'm sure back in 70s, 80s, 90s, like you didn't have the replayability you do nowadays. So it's like, I mean, we were spoiled with the reruns, but I mean, you had to like either take someone's word, or if somebody put in the VHS or the Betamax and did that, which I don't think you could record on Betamax like you could, but it's like, oh my gosh, like,
or it was water cooler. Like literally you'd go to work on Monday or you go to school on Monday and you'd hear about, oh, you didn't hear it? Like you didn't see the whatever sketch?
Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, you missed it. So
and then you got to watch the reruns when they're on in the summer.
Yeah.
So, okay. We've got Mandalorian. We've got Psych. We've got Breaking Bad. We've got Parks and Recreation.
Yep.
I know what your number one is, but they don't know what your number one is. And if it's not what I think it is, I'll be really upset.
I think you might be.
Really?
Because
okay.
So mine is
let's
number
go.
one.
What's your number one?
Is Scrubs.
Okay. That's 100%.
Did you think it was The Office?
No, I thought it was Scrubs.
Okay.
No question.
Because so we'll talk about.
I don't have a red light
later,
so that I'm angry, but I would have been angry if it wasn't Scrubs.
If the app worked, it worked on the beginning and made me look cool. Now I'm opposite of the fool. So anyway, so Scrubs. I actually just recently watched rewatched it. In the quarantine times, and I will stick by this because I'm able to, and I found out the reason why. So before there were streaming services and everything, Scrubs appeared in 2001, so 20 years ago, which is insane. But it was one of the last things filmed at NBC that actually used film. So it wasn't like digital or anything like that. So a lot of the later iterations, they don't have Blu-ray on streaming services because of everything like that. The music rights to a lot of the songs they couldn't procure, which is the reason why the Wonder Years took forever, is because getting all the rights to everything like that, I guess, was a huge thing. So music rights, the music in Scrubs on DVD, because the DVDs, and if you get it on Apple Music, or Apple, whatever, iTunes, that's the word. Yeah, if you get it on that, it has the original music, but I highly recommend, if you're able to, either buy DVDs at any of your wonderful reused shops. But watching it on that just changes it so much, because you actually get the real music. I mean, it's a great show that, starts out as, I don't know much about medical things, but this show apparently is one of the most medically accurate. And it's funny, it's serious, because it's a hospital, people die, there's sickness. It's heartwarming because people do survive and they save people. It's hilarious because it was built to be a comedy, and there's episodes where you're laughing and then a couple minutes later you're crying, because it's such a great show. It's well written. Bill Lawrence, who did Spin City years prior, was really amazing at developing this. And I guess I learned that it's based on a friend of his who, he told Bill Lawrence all these stories because he was in medical school, and then became a doctor. And so it's kind of based off of his life. And it's like cool. A lot of it's like real stories or something similar that happened. And it's just like so cool that, this show is somewhat based on real events, even though it's a comedy and all this stuff is like absurd in these fantasies. But it's just the reason I kind of switched it. There's an episode, it's 9 seasons long, but the 9th season is technically not part of it, because in season 8 there is an episode, the very last one is called My Finale, and so that's where I think it ends. And then they went on and did like a Mr. Belding and Screech went on to college and did all that stuff with what's it called, Saved by the Bell, and it's just like that's not really Saved by the Bell. So that's 9 seasons, not really Scrubs. But honestly, like if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it in any capacity, even with streaming services if you can. It's on Hulu and it's on Prime. But oh my gosh, just such a good, great emotional show. And plus it was there, I started watching it a lot, and the end of high school and college, early college, and it tied a lot to my life. And so that's why I think it's such an important show for me, is because it was like, it got like, hate to be that cliche, it got me through some crap, but it's,
Yeah,
it's just
man.
it's a great show. Just, it's so good. So I highly recommend it. And that's why it's my number one show.
Well, I shouldn't be surprised that I for sure knew that was your number one,
I
but I
think I
shouldn't
know
be
where this is
surprised.
going.
Yeah, I shouldn't be surprised that we would have similar reasons for our number one picks to get you through tough times. Started watching it around the same time. But my number one for you, to recap, I have The Office at number 5,
Mhm.
Mad Men at number 4, Breaking Bad 3, SNL is number 2. My number one show for you, also in a hospital, it's House.
House. Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah,
Which, that's the
man.
one I was telling you about, that, it took me years to watch, and I love it. But it's, yeah, go ahead. It's a great show.
Yeah, I mean, I started watching it, early college. Living with Sam and John there on Abbott Street,
Woo.
and yeah, 1013, one love. And it's just such a good show. There were reflections of my life in it, like you had with Scrubs. I had a horrible Vicodin addiction, and I was, I'm kidding, uh, walking with a cane.
Yeah.
Um,
Had a British accent at one point and changed it to
yeah,
American.
yeah. So you could really tell that I'd done my homework.
Yeah.
Just an amazing show. It's based on Sherlock Holmes,
Yep.
which is my favorite character. I love Sherlock Holmes. My dad kind of passed that down. I have the full book of stories, and we'd watch the movies, the old Basil Rathbones and whatnot.
Yeah.
Love the movies with Robert Downey Jr. So House being based on Sherlock, there was a lot of draw, and a lot of it is just Hugh Laurie, just an
Yeah.
unbelievably funny guy in a weirdly dark role. And it just kind of hit cosmically, again, great use of music, stuff like
Yes.
I would go and look it up, like, what the hell is that song? It was so good. And I can still picture watching the scene for the first time and just breaking down crying, in some of
Yep.
the episodes that are just so dark. Got me through some tough times. And yeah, I think it's weird that I picked that. I love Sherlock Holmes so much, but I didn't pick Sherlock or Elementary. But there's just something about there's just something about like Scrubs for you. It's just in our DNA.
Yeah.
It's something about it that just draws us in.
Yeah. And I think, I feel like with not so much Scrubs, but I feel like with House, I felt like it was a great show, but it was a good show to where you could develop like a dark sense of humor that, there is, you can laugh at death, and it's not just because something bad's happening doesn't mean you can't laugh about it a lot of the time. Like, Hugh Laurie, like he comes in and talks about, anti-vax, and it's like, oh, it's cheaper to get a baby coffin than to do all this stuff. And it's just like, oh my gosh, but there are people out there, and it's just kind of like, yeah, that's just how it is. And it's just that dark humor that I feel like our generation has because of shows like House. So made it safe to do that.
Well, some strong top fives, man. I know we've got honorable mentions.
The hardest thing I had to do.
Yeah. What didn't quite make the list for you?
So I know we didn't set any qualifiers, but I didn't have any like animated shows, because there are great ones out there. Did you think I was going to have Simpsons on there? Possibly?
No, I thought you'd have Venture Brothers on there.
That's in my honorable mention.
Yeah.
So I have Venture Brothers, and I was like, I put the reason why is like it's animated, so it doesn't have a wide audience, but I mean, it's been on since 2001, I think. Also 2001, 2003 might have been when it came out. But I mean, it's been on for years and only had 7 seasons.
I'll say they take some time off in between.
Yeah, and then to animate and do all that other stuff takes forever. But I had that. I had The Simpsons on my honorable mention because, I mean, you take season 1 through 11 is where a lot of people say, but I say, 13, 14 is where it started to go downhill. So it's like, 1 through 12 is just like amazing television. And if they had ended it there, I feel like it's the not necessarily greedy effect, but I feel like, the reason they kept going is because a lot of people liked it, but Fox probably just, people love this show, let's make money off of it type thing. Which isn't to say they didn't do that in the beginning with Butterfingers and every other, do the Bartman and all that other product placement
Right.
and stuff like that. What they got from it. So it was like a big cash cow. But I mean, the longer it goes on, the more you think, yeah, it should have ended. But there are funny moments, and of course, season 20 they had the movie, and the movie was just actually really hilarious. So I think if you get the right writers, then you can pretty much do anything with that show. But it didn't make the top 5 just because I was like, well, it's weighing of, you have this many great seasons, but then you've got this many bad seasons. So it's like, can you really judge it off of that? Which is why The Office was a member or honorable mention for me.
Yep.
Kind of how you said earlier that the last 2 seasons, like not a lot of people liked, and that's why I picked, because it was down. I was going to have Parks and Rec and The Office be one or the other, be in there, but I was like, the last 2 seasons just didn't do it for me. But you had to have the season finale or series finale with Dwight's wedding and how everything came to be, and so you had to have that. But it just, that and then Community, which you had mentioned in your other podcast that you watched the or other episode, you'd watched the blooper reels, and before you'd ever seen it. And my cousin actually was telling me to watch Community. I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. And so
Ryan
after
Kebby?
watching it, Ryan Kebby, yeah, shout out Ryan Kebby.
Yeah.
So but I finally watched it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really good. But I think it was like too little too late for me to add it to a top 5, because it was great and had those moments. But it's just, plus the gas leak year, how they joke about season 4 wasn't the greatest because
it had it had a similar trajectory of Scrubs too. It had the gas leak year in season 4, but then also it had that weird Yahoo season.
Yes,
season 6, and it's like
season 6, and it kind of got away from being about community college and just kind of like, it was a show there, which I think a lot of these, if you let them run long enough, it's going to get away from its original source material and stuff. Well, material, like it's coming from something, but the original, what it was. So
there are certain shows, like I'll put Friends, one of my honorable mentions on that list of, I think it went just a little too long. I know the Friends fanatics, sorry, Hannah, if you're going to listen to this.
Oh yeah, she's still mad at me. I don't like that show.
Yeah, but the first 4 or 5 seasons the first 4 or 5 seasons are phenomenal. I love the first, but then it just kind of goes on a little too long. And How I Met Your Mother was a really, really funny sitcom. But it was just so terrible the last couple of seasons. It just was on fumes. I would have for you, I have True Detective, because the first season is the best season of television of all time. It absolutely is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But season 2 is so bad, and season 3 is good, but
not enough to redeem it. So
enough. And it's not enough material, like Daredevil from Netflix.
Ooh, yeah.
Really, really, really good 3 seasons of television, especially the first season, also up there for one of the greatest seasons of all time. Yes. But I don't know that that's enough material to really, Party Down is a deep cut. Only 20 episodes, but it's so funny.
That's kind of like Eastbound and Down, except the first season, because the first, oh my God, so it's hilarious and quotable, and was right along with all the Adam McKay stuff, like that whole being in college and whatever. And the first season was like ridiculous, and it was supposed to be just a limited series, and then it was like, we're gonna make a couple seasons, and we're like yes, and then you watch, you're like no. So
take it back. It's just, take it back.
It's like, just go back to season 1. It's cool. We can have a limited series. I'm sorry. So, but it's just, that was just another, like you said, it was just a great first season, like one of the best in my opinion, comedy wise. And it's just like, well, maybe not, maybe, and series wise, but season, yeah, great. So, which, do you have Sherlock in your honorable mentions? You've watched that, right? I hope.
So I'm a big Sherlock fan, and maybe this is wrong of me to not include it, because it would be an honorable mention. But I view it as more of a mini series or a series of movies, because the episodes are like an hour and a half to 2 hours long or whatever they are. And there's not
2 hours. So.
Like a season is 3 episodes. You're like, what?
Yeah,
you're weird in England. But anyway,
they are.
I love the show. I love Benedict Cumberbatch. I love Martin Freeman. I think they're a great pairing. They have good. I love Gemma Chan. Huge fan of hers.
Yes.
in her episode. But yeah, to me, it's more of a miniseries or a movie. It doesn't feel episodic like the other shows that
Yeah.
we've talked about.
It, like you say, it honestly does feel like, I know we talked about Breaking Bad being like each episode is like a mini movie, but honestly, those, I feel like could have been a movie series that, just because it's like, it's so many. But I mean, they're great episodes, but I think that's why it's on my honorable mentions, because it's like, it's good, but there's some better things out there that are more, like you said, episodic. But that was one thing I wanted to bring up with Breaking Bad. I think they had only said they were going to do 5 seasons, and they said from the start they're going to do it all in 5 seasons and not expand on that. And I think that's what made it so good, is because they knew that if they let it run longer than that, then it might have been stale like some of the other shows.
Well, so you're right. That's a great call on their part, because even within the 5, there are some. It kind of got off the rails a little bit. Like, I'm not gonna lie, Breaking Bad, I'm a huge fan, but the magnet, when they need to get the laptop from lockup, and the magnet
season 5, and you're like, okay.
And then the train heist, when they steal the chemical from the
train. You didn't like that one? I thought that was pretty good, because
he's a chemistry teacher. I understand that he's kind of warped now and he's gotten into the drug world. He's not James Bond, okay?
That's true.
These aren't Navy SEALs. This is just a couple of goofs and
and it's like, yeah. And it's,
there's a reason it wasn't number 1, okay? I mean, it's a really good show, don't get me wrong. It's incredible writing, phenomenal characters, but there's some, even the story itself is kind of far-fetched, but at magnet in a truck into the side of a wall, train heists to, okay. He's not a spy. He's not a trained assassin or anything. Like, he's just a guy.
Yeah. And then the bottle episode where they're in the lab and contamination and the fly flying around and all that other stuff was just like, okay, we get it. Like, he's going crazy and needs sleep and blah, blah, blah. And then there's season 2, it's not the opener, because the opener was great, but then the episodes after, where it's like, hey, I'm not doing meth. I'm not making meth. And they're like, okay. And then a couple episodes, you're like, okay, I'm making meth. They're like, okay. Like, it's a great show. I love it. That's why it's in my top 5. But at the same time, it's like, there's some filler episodes that they could have
just like done anything. Without, if you start picking apart at anything, you can find some stuff like, I don't know that I like that.
And it's just like, but like, other than that, great show. All of them. I mean, if we do a top 5 worst, I feel like I could, top 5, bottom 5 worst. I don't think you could call something top if it's terrible, but
no, you do top 5 worst. Yeah. Top 5 least favorite, but that'd be tough, because if I don't like something out the gate, I'm done.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones. Sorry about you. Never going to try again.
That was so good. That would make my, disappointing. It's like, no, because I liked it at first, and then it just got like, Yeah. So that's the top 5 and honorable mentions.
All right, buddy. Well, normally you have the guest like plug something, but I don't know that
I don't do much.
You're not active on social media. You don't have a podcast yet. We might be in talks about something, but
yes.
Yeah. Would you like people to know before we say goodbye?
I have a dog. Her name's Frankie, but you knew that.
She's a good dog sometimes.
I know. I need to get more active in social media so I can be like, yeah, that's me.
No, don't do it.
But
stay happy.
Don't do it.
Don't get sucked into the vortex, man.
If you're in the North Florida, South Georgia area near the coast, hit me up. I'm here. Brunswick, 912.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you for taking the time to do the show. I had a lot of fun. I knew we would. I'm sure we'll do another episode soon. I love you. Talk to you soon, bud.
Love you too, bud. Woo!